At noon, the sun went out. People looked up from streets, kitchens, and office windows and saw the sky turn the color of burned steel. Clouds did not drift. They were cut. A shadow line slid across whole continents. Birds fell quiet. Traffic stopped. At green lights, somewhere, a child dropped an ice cream and did not cry. Everyone listened to the same new sound, the slow, deep thrum of engines that were not from Earth. They came in blades. The ships were long and thin, like knives thrown by a giant hand. They did not roar. They drifted with terrible grace, turning sideways to reveal ribbed hulls and black panels that drank the light. When the first shadow passed over New York, people reached for phones. In Lagos, a woman whispered a prayer. In Tokyo, trains halted between stations. In Karachi, a boy pointed and laughed and then went silent when the ship blocked the sun. Every screen flickered. News anchors froze with half-formed words. A single symbol appeared, a circle with 6 cuts. Then a voice spoke in every language at once. It was flat, like a machine reading an old script. Submit. Your species is acquired. Compliance brings food and shelter. Resistance brings harvest. The voice ended. The symbol turned red. Then the symbol blinked like an eye. Governments spoke to each other in dark rooms. Generals woke to alarms. Satellites sent images of a fleet so large that radar maps looked broken. In 1 hour, the aliens placed ships over 200 cities. Smaller craft peeled off and held station above power plants, rivers, oceans, and mountain passes. They were not looking for a fight. They were arranging a farm. Underground. Captain Elias Rourke watched the feed from a cracked monitor. He was not a tall man. He carried his years like weights strapped to his shoulders, but his eyes were sharp. The bunker smelled of metal, coffee, and dust. Around him, young techs whispered and shook, their faces lit by cold blue screens. Rourke did not shake. He felt fear, but it moved through him like wind through wires. He let it pass. Any sign? "They've mapped the tunnels," he asked. "No, sir," said Lynn, the network lead. "They blacked out global comms. But the fiber loops on Iron Wave are still dark to them. We're invisible as long as we don't shout." Rourke nodded. Iron Wave had been called a myth, a secret backbone, buried deep under bedrock, disconnected from the normal internet, built to ride out an event just like this. He had argued for it for 10 years. He had been called paranoid. He did not feel proud now. He felt ready. "Keep the chatter short," he said. "Only handshakes and keys. We speak when it matters." Above ground, panic rippled and then hardened into something else. In a hospital, a nurse covered an old man with a blanket and kept moving. In a firehouse, a woman checked her gear and bumped helmets with the kid next to her. In a police car, 2 officers looked at each other and did not need to talk. Everywhere, people picked a job and did it. The first troop pods fell. They were smooth grey eggs with no seams. They did not burn. They pulsed. When they landed, the air around them trembled like water. The shells opened with a sigh. Tall shapes, stepped-out jointed legs, segmented armor, heads with like a crown of glass. Their weapons hummed. The aliens moved with the bored confidence of factory workers starting a shift. They did not shoot. They scanned. Lines of light passed over crowds. The invaders marked forearms with glowing bands that shifted from blue to white. Blue meant strong. White meant weak. Both meant useful. In Times Square, a woman slapped the band on her wrist and said, I am not your anything. An alien reached for her. A man threw a bottle. It bounced off the armor and shattered. The alien did not care. It waved the crowd forward like ASHEEPD. OG. In the bunker, Rourke leaned over a map. Red markers showed pod landings. Blue dots were his teams hidden, quiet, waiting. He had trained them in tunnels, mines, and cold warehouses at 3 a.m. He had told them the same thing again and again. When it starts, you will be scared. That is fine. Move anyway. A young signal officer, Reyes, swallowed hard. Sir, are we really doing this? They have a fleet. We have city guns. Rourke's mouth twitched. We don't have city guns, he said softly. We have a planet. He tapped the table. On command, screens showed rail batteries hidden in freight yards and under stadiums. Micro-missile nests disguised as ventilation shafts and drones, parked in sewer culverts. Civil engineers had designed them. Street artists had painted them. Retired miners had built them by hand. Parts had been shipped on toy trucks, flower vans, funeral cars, and school buses. No one had noticed because the world is loud and busy, and 1,000 small things happen every day. Lynn looked up. Iron wave handshake, complete with Athens, Lagos, and Manila. Others still trying to reach us through the blackout. Tell them to hold their breath and count to 10, Rourke said. We go when we see the whites of their sensors. On the surface, the aliens herded people into squares and stadiums. They stacked captured radios and phones in neat piles. They cut power to neighborhoods and left hospitals alone. They wanted workers alive. They wanted them scared but organized. It was not hatred. It was logistics. A boy in a blue hoodie clutched his little sister's hand. He watched the sky and the strange not-sun shadows. He whispered, "Where is Dad?" The sister did not answer. She stared at the nearest pod and bit her lip until she tasted blood. In Rome, a priest rang a bell until his hands bled. In Delhi, volunteers formed a human chain at a children's hospital to carry batteries upstairs. In Snow Paulo, a woman lifted a grate and lowered a bundle of papers into a dry drain and put the grate back and walked away like nothing had happened. Little acts flowed into a tide. The alien commander stood on a balcony inside his ship and looked down through a crystal floor at the city below. His name meant accounting of harvests. He was good at his job. He had taken worlds where the people screamed and worlds where they sang. He preferred the second. They broke slower. A junior officer clicked 2 sets of mandibles. Resistance. Probability is low, it said. Species shows attachment to offspring and symbols. Recommend early removal of leaders and flag things. The commander considered. No, remove leaders later. Keep the symbols. They will watch their banners. And stand still. He looked at the clock. Begin full collection in 1 hour. In the bunker, a low hum rose. Deep in the ground, flywheels spun up and supercapacitors woke. The railguns did not look like guns. They looked like boxes bolted to concrete ribs. They were patient machines. They loved stored lightning. Rourke stood very still. He thought about his wife, who had left a note on the fridge that morning about groceries and flowers. He thought about the kid who fixed the coffee machine last week and called him sir with a tired smile. He thought about the aliens who had crossed cold space to put bands on human wrists. He felt something simple move through him. It was not rage. It was care sharpened into a blade. All teams, he said, stand by. An elevator clanked. A door wheezed. The room smelled suddenly like rain, though the air was dry. Lynn's fingers danced. Their scan nets are sweeping for high heat signatures, she said. They'll see the batteries if we light the whole board. We won't, Rourke said. We will breathe with them. In, out, in, out. Then we cut. On a rooftop 3 blocks from a landing zone, Sergeant Vega lay flat behind a low wall. She could see the nearest pod and the long legs of the soldiers around it. Her team crouched behind vents with masks on and eyes wide. She checked her watch. She could feel the faint buzz of the coil pack on her back. On my mark, she whispered. Far away, the alien commander raised one hand. The harvest clock reached 0 dot in tunnels and basements and hidden vaults. Relays clicked. Rourke took a breath and spoke 3 words into the mic. Open the sky. Asterisk, the sky tore open with light. From rooftops, fields, and hidden batteries, streams of white fire cracked upward. The railgun spoke in a voice older than cities, a sound that made bones hum. Metal rods screamed through the air at 9 times the speed of sound. When they struck the first alien pod, it didn't explode, it simply came apart, the way ice shatters when struck with a hammer. The soldiers inside didn't have time to scream. Pieces of armor clattered across the pavement like dropped coins in Times Square. The crowd froze. A rail slug punched a hole straight through the alien commander's escort, splitting the creature in half. Green fluid splashed the ground. For the first time, the invaders stumbled. Sergeant Vega's voice cut through the iron wave network. Zone 1 is clear. Repeating Zone 1 is clear. In bunkers across the planet, commanders grinned for the first time since the invasion began. Rourke didn't smile. His eyes stayed on the board. The enemy was moving fast, faster than human reflexes could track. Pods in other cities were shifting formations, scanning for the source of the shots. Lynn called out, "They're triangulating. Rail positions. We've got 3 minutes before they drop counterfire." 2 minutes too long for them, Rourke said. He leaned over the mic. Fire sequence delta spread and fade. Around the world, human batteries fired in carefully timed bursts, then shut down instantly, moving power to decoys. From space, the aliens would see dozens of false targets. In truth, the real guns were already being hauled into tunnels and basements by teams working in darkness. For the first time since they arrived, the aliens pulled back. It wasn't a retreat, at least, not in their eyes. They called it tactical repositioning, but to the people watching from broken windows and dark rooftops, it looked like fear. The black ships that had hovered so low over the cities began to rise, sliding up through the clouds, vanishing into the high sky. They thought distance meant safety. They were wrong. In an underground hangar carved out of an old mountain mine, the roar of engines shook the dust from the ceiling. What had once been cargo shuttles and weather survey craft now bristled with missile pods, rail cannons, and welded armor plates painted in camouflage and graffiti. Human hands had built them in secret, working for years under the cover of fake mining projects and failed aerospace programs. Now, those ships had names: Razorwind, Valkyrie, Black Sun, Iron Ghost. Captain Rourke stood on the metal gantry above the flight deck, his voice steady over the comms. They came from the sky. Let's take it back from them. The first strike. Team was led by Sergeant Vega. Her shuttle, Razorwind, had been an orbital fuel hauler once slow and ugly. Now it carried a crew of 12, a railgun on its spine, and enough armor to shrug off a glancing plasma hit. The hatch sealed with a hiss. She looked at her crew faces, pale, eyes bright, and said, when we break through, don't stop firing until the hull is ash." On the surface, the last of the hidden launch silos opened. The modified shuttles roared upward, their engines tearing through the cold air. The aliens noticed them instantly. From orbit, sleek interceptors peeled away from the flagship and dived. They were faster, sharper, more advanced in every way. But speed meant nothing if you couldn't keep your wings. Human engineers had studied alien flight patterns for years. Every missile fired from Valkyrie was pre-programmed to chase heat, then turn cold, forcing the alien interceptors into sudden, violent turns. The result was chaos. 3 alien craft collided mid-air, their own plasma bursts igniting the wreckage. In flashes of green fire, Vigar's voice crackled in Rourke's ear. Punching through their nets, we're on approach to the command ship. Rourke's eyes never left the main display. Once you're in, you have 10 minutes. That ship carries their fleet brain. Without it, they're just drifting knives. Above Earth, the flagship loomed like a black mountain against the stars. Its surface shimmered with shields that looked like rippling water. As Razorwind closed the distance, the shield's pole stand then shuddered under a barrage from the hidden orbital railguns. Rourke had kept silent until now. Invisible to alien scans, the rail platforms had been floating among abandoned satellites. Disguised as dead debris, the shields broke like glass. "Go, go, go," Vega shouted. The shuttle slammed into the flagship's side. Magnetic clamps locked them in place. The boarding hatch blew open with a deafening clang, and Vega's crew poured in, rifles up, moving in a tight diamond formation. The corridors were narrow, the walls alive with flickering alien symbols. The air smelled of ozone and something metallic like old blood. The first alien guards appeared without warning. Tall, insectoid, their limbs moved in blurs. Plasma bolts burned into the walls, leaving glowing scars. Vega dropped to one knee, fired twice, and watched the first guard collapse in a heap of shattered armor. Her crew pressed forward, laying down suppressive fire, back on Earth. Rourke listened to the come-feed shouts, gunfire, and the steady thump of boots on metal. But he also watched something else, the rest of the alien fleet, without the flagships. Full coordination, their attack patterns were starting to unravel. Small human strike teams were hitting their troop carriers, targeting fuel lines, severing comm relays. Every lost ship meant fewer invaders in the fight. Inside the flagship, Vega's team reached the core chamber. It was a massive sphere of shifting light, suspended above a pit with no visible bottom. Alien technicians scrambled to lock it down, but they were too slow. Vega's explosives expert Hayes rushed forward, slapped magnetic charges along the support pylons, and grinned. "That's our exit ticket," he said. A deep rumble shook the deck. The alien commander's voice boomed through the ship's comms, furious now. "Insects, you will serve us in pieces if not alive." Vega keyed her mic to Rourke. "Charges set. 3 minutes to boom." "Pull out," Rourke ordered, and Vega leave them a message. She smiled grimly, already planned. As they sprinted back to the shuttle, Hayes sprayed a single sentence across the core room wall in bright red paint. "We hunt the hunters." The retreat was chaos. Plasma fires stitched across the corridors. One of Vega's crew went down, armor smoking. Another dragged him aboard the Razorwind without breaking stride. The hatch slammed shut, and the shuttle tore free of the flagship's skin, spinning as it dived toward Earth. Behind them, the charge's blue dot from orbit. It looked like the flagship had swallowed the sun. A sphere of light tore outward, shattering the ship into molten fragments. The blast wave ripped through the surrounding alien vessels, tearing some apart instantly, crippling others. The fleet's neat, predatory formation collapsed into drifting wreckage and broken engines. On the ground, the people who had been hiding for days stepped outside and saw burning trails in the sky. They didn't know the details. They didn't need to. All they knew was that for the first time, the invaders were falling. Rourke stood in the bunker, watching the red blips vanish from the board. He knew it wasn't over. The aliens still had ships, still had troops. But now, the war had changed. Humanity wasn't defending anymore. Now, they were hunting. The night sky burned. Where there had once been neat constellations, now there were streaks of orange and green fire. Pieces of alien ships fell through the atmosphere, some breaking apart high above, others slamming into oceans and deserts with thunder that rattled windows hundreds of miles away. For 3 days after the destruction of the flagship Earth dared to hope, people returned to rooftops. Children played in streets. Radios carried stories of the invaders' retreat. But hope was dangerous. The alien fleet was hurt, not broken. Without their flagship, they fought like a wounded animal, unpredictable and savage. The commander who had survived the blast, a scarred veteran named Cole, took control of the remaining ships. He didn't want slaves anymore. He wanted revenge. His orders were simple: erase their cities, burn their oceans, salt their skies. The first target was Sydney. The fleet descended in the early hours, their weapons lighting the harbour as bright as noon. Whole districts turned to molten glass. The opera house was gone in seconds. The aliens didn't bother with troops-only bombardment, sweeping from the coast inland until the city's lights went dark forever. The message was clear. Humanity would pay in the bunker under the mountains. Rourke stood before the war counselor line of tired faces from every continent, their voices carried by the unbreakable iron wave. Generals, ministers, engineers, and leaders who had sworn never to share a table now leaned forward over the same maps. The air smelled of cold coffee and dust. "They've shifted to full extermination," Lynn reported, her voice clipped. "No troop landings, no prisoners. They hit water supplies, farmland, and power grids. Sydney is gone. Snow, Paulo took a hit, but is still holding. Moscow's shielded districts have hours at most." The silence was heavy. "They're trying to make us run out of food before winter," said a voice from the screen over Africa. "If they destroy our growing zones, they won't get the chance." Rourke cut in. He tapped the map, bringing up a rotating schematic of the largest alien vessel still in orbit, the Woundmaker, a massive warship armed with enough plasma to level a continent. It was the backbone of their bombardment. Without it, their ground strikes would slow to a crawl. "We take that ship, the rest scatter," Rourke said. "And we can take it. They're overconfident, and we've got the element they think we've spent." Several heads turned toward him. "Operation Final Dawn," he said. The words hung in the air like a weight. It was a plan so dangerous, so costly, it had been buried in classified archives. The idea: hijacked the power core of an alien capital ship and overload it. The resulting chain reaction would turn the vessel into a sun bright enough and hot enough to incinerate anything within thousands of kilometers. Done near the alien fleet, it could erase them all in one strike. "But we'd lose the team we send," Lynn said quietly. Rourke didn't blink. They'd know it before they went in, and they'd go anyway. The War Council didn't argue. They all knew the alternative. Cities burned one by one until nothing was left to fight for. The team was chosen in minutes. Sergeant Vega volunteered before anyone else could speak. Her crew from Razorwind with smaller Nothri had been lost in the flagship raid, but those who remained didn't hesitate. They would take a stolen alien shuttle, sneak through the fleet using captured codes, and board the Woundmaker under the guise of a damaged friendly vessel. Vega's voice came through. Thebunkerfeed.com, but hard. When we get in, we'll plant the core charges. 10 minutes later, you'll see daylight in the middle of the night. Rourke only nodded. Make sure they never see you coming. The launch was silent. The stolen shuttle rose under cloud cover, its hull painted with alien kill marks taken from a destroyed ship. From a distance, it looked like any other of the Invaders' craft limping back to dock. The alien fleet barely glanced at it as it passed through their perimeter. Inside the Woundmaker, the corridors were darker than the flagships had been narrower, more like a fortress than a ship. The air was heavy with heat and the low hum of power lines carrying unimaginable energy. Vega's team moved like shadows, weapons ready but silent. They reached a core chamber. It was larger than anything they'd seen before, a sphere the size of a city block, rotating slowly in a nest of metal arms, arcs of blue-white lightning dancing across its surface. The sound was like a distant storm. Hayes set the charges with hands that didn't shake. 10 minutes, he whispered. That was when the alarms started. Somewhere on the ship, a scanner had caught their heat signatures. Red lights pulsed down. The corridors, the alien language barked over coms, sharp and urgent. Boots four-legged and fast-pounded toward them. Seal the door, Vega ordered. They welded the hatch shut, buying themselves maybe 3 minutes. Hayes kept working, locking the detonator in place. The first blows landed against the hatch metal, ringing under the assault. Charges set. Hey Seal, ye lithe, I'm bigger. Keyed her come, Rourke, it's done. Tell the council we're not prey. In the bunker, Rourke's jaw tightened. We'll remember. The hatch gave way. The aliens poured in, their weapons spitting plasma. Vega's team fired back. In a storm of light and thunder, Hayes went down, still holding the detonator. Vega grabbed it and slammed her fist onto the trigger. From orbit, Earth's night lit up. The Woundmaker erupted in a blinding bloom of white and gold, its explosion swallowing nearby ships in an expanding wave of fire. The blast rippled through. The alien fleet, tearing apart anything too slow to run. Those that survived turned tail, their sleek forms vanishing into the black. On Earth, people looked up from ruins, from hiding places, from underground shelters, and saw the sky burning with alien wreckage. For the first time, there was no fear in their faces, only a grim, fierce satisfaction. In the bunker, Lynn looked at Rourke. They're leaving, for now, Rourke said, but they'll remember this. And in the dark between the stars, the story of humanity's fury began to spread. Asterisk for 2 days. The skies were quiet. The alien fleet, crippled and leaderless, drifted beyond Earth's reach. Fragments of their shattered ships still burned in the atmosphere, falling like strange, glowing snow. People stepped out of bunkers and shelters, blinking in the sunlight as if seeing it for the first time in years. Cities counted their dead. Families searched the rubble for the living. Across the planet, the sound of silence was heavier than war dot. In the bunker, Rourke studied the board. The red blips were gone, replaced by only a handful of scattered markers moving away from Earth. He knew better than to celebrate. Predators didn't always leave because they were beaten. Sometimes they left because they were planning something worse. Lin approached, holding a thin sheet of paper, the only safe way to carry certain messages now. "Intercepted alien transmissions," she said. "They're not running home. They're regrouping at the edge of the system." Rourke read the coordinates. His jaw tightened. "They're going to jump in reinforcements." "They don't have the numbers," Lin said. "They don't need numbers," Rourke replied. "They'll bring their harvest ships, the kind that strip a planet bare in hours." The War Council was called again. Around the table, faces were pale but determined. No one wanted to go back into hiding. No one wanted to wait for the aliens to make the next move. "This is our only chance," Rourke said, pointing at the map. "Their fleet is wounded. Their command is fractured. If they bring harvesters, we won't stop them. But right now, we can finish this." "How?" someone asked. Rourke's answer was 2 words: the hammer. The hammer was a weapon humanity had, sworn never to use because it wasn't meant to be a weapon at all. It was an asteroid deflection project built decades ago to push dangerous rocks away from Earth. It used massive fusion engines to shift the path of asteroids, millions of kilometers out in space. But with a small adjustment, it could do the opposite. It could push one in. The target was a chunk of iron and nickel, the size of a mountain, floating near the asteroid belt. If the hammer nudged it hard enough, its trajectory would intersect perfectly with the alien fleet's regrouping point. They wouldn't have time to jump away. There was only one problem. The aliens would see it coming, and they'd try to destroy it before impact. So the plan was simple. Make them too busy fighting for their lives to notice. Within hours, Earth's surviving strike craft launched again. Viga's loss weighed heavy, but her surviving crew members took her place in the lead ships. Their job was to draw the alien fleet's attention, hit them, vanish, hit them again. Meanwhile, in the cold dark beyond Mars, the hammer fired its engines, the asteroid beginning its long, silent fall. The aliens took the bait. They chased the strike craft, burning fuel and scattering their formation. But slowly, one by one, they began to notice the massive object hurtling toward them. By then, it was too late. From the bridge of the alien command ship, Ariath Cole finally understood. His mandibles clicked in fury. "They're using the void against us." "Orders, Commander," asked his lieutenant. "Destroy it," Ariath Cole barked. Plasma batteries turned toward the incoming asteroid, spitting streams of light into the black. The surface of the rock blistered and cracked under the assault, but it kept coming, spinning. Slowly, its engines burning bright behind it. Rourke watched from the bunker, every muscle tense. "Come on, hold together." The asteroid's outer shell began to peel away, revealing reinforced metal plating welded deep into its surface, human engineering hidden inside a natural shell. The aliens' weapons could scar it, but not break it. 5 minutes to impact. The alien fleet tried to scatter, but their own formation was working against them. Ships collided in the chaos. Some attempted emergency jumps, only to vanish in bursts of blue light as their drives failed under stress. Ariath Cole ordered his flagship to fire a concentrated beam at the asteroid's core. It was their last chance. The beam struck dead center and triggered the final surprise. Hidden inside the asteroid was a massive warhead, built from the scavenged reactors of destroyed alien ships. The moment the beam hit, the warhead armed itself. Impact came like the birth of a sun. A shockwave ripped through the alien fleet, tearing ships apart in silence. Hulls crumpled, weapons shattered, and engines went dark. The few survivors fled. Without formation, their drives burning in wild, desperate arcs. Irithkol's flagship was caught on the edge of the blast, tumbling into the void with its hull split open like a cracked egg. On Earth, the night sky lit up again this time, not with falling wreckage, but with the reflection of a victory no one had thought possible. Lynn's voice was quiet. "They're gone." Rourke didn't smile. He simply said, "Then let's make sure they never come back." In the days that followed, humanity rebuilt not just cities, but a new defense. Orbital platforms rose where the alien fleet had once cast its shadow. The Iron Wave became a global network, linking every nation into one voice, and carved into the side of the largest defense station were the words Vega had left behind. "We hunt the hunters," but somewhere, far beyond the reach of Earth's new walls, broken ships limped through the dark. Their crews carried stories of a small, stubborn world that shattered fleets, burned flagships, and threw a mountain from the sky. Stories that would spread through the stars, changing how the galaxy saw humanity. They had come for slaves, they left in pieces, and the next time they came, they would remember.